And actually, we discovered something back in London. If you do this, hey, because what does this do? It calms people down, yeah.
Today I am gonna bring you an interesting study, fairly recent study as well. University of California 2021 study, The Dating Divide, Race and Desire in the Era of Online Romance. I know the common, prevalent opinion is that ethnicity is not nowhere near as impactful on your dating opportunities as your height. I know this is the common opinion. And yet, when we look at the data at hand, this doesn't seem to be the case. Just like you can't ignore the other physical aspects like height or a symmetrical face, you would be fooling yourself if you say ethnic background does not play a role in dating. Today we are gonna talk about this, the trade-off between height and ethnicity, with new data as well. We are gonna do this in the light of the latest study available from the University of California. This is from the 2021 University of California study, The Dating Divide, Race and Desire in the Era of Online Romance. And I quote, height also takes the backseat to race when it comes to white women's preferences. Recall that in chapter 3, many women were insistent that they heavily preferred men taller than themselves. Yet figure 411 shows that white women are more willing to date shorter white men than taller minority men. Guys, never put too much stock into what people have to say in public. Look at their actions and actual choices behind closed doors when they think they are not being observed. You are your truest self when you think there is no one watching you. You will say, oh, I don't see it that way. That's okay, but the evidence sees it that way, bro. The evidence sees it that way. That is the problem. You can see white dots representing the taller man, while black dots representing the shorter man from each ethnicity. This is the data based on how women act behind closed doors on those hookup apps. Now, you could make the argument that height makes its presence felt more in real life situations than on dating apps. I would agree on this because you can't see men's height and compare on dating apps, right? That might partially explain these numbers. I mean, especially regarding black men, because according to this, shorter black men are getting more responses from white women than taller black men do. This doesn't comply, this doesn't align with the mountains of other empirical data about height we have at hand. So this data would be an outlier in that aspect. But even then, one thing both women and all of you guys have in common is not acknowledging, not being able to acknowledge the disqualification factor the ethnic background plays in the dating scene. Overall, it is a much bigger disqualifier than height. Pay attention here, guys. I am very specific with my words. Disqualifying factor. Unless you are something really short, like 5'6". Height is not gonna disqualify you in its own right. Women think 5'10" is 6 feet or something anyway. Men lie about their height all the time. If you are 5'9", for example, right? That is not a good height to be. I am not gonna lie to you. And you are at a disadvantage in general. But you are not gonna lose 50%, 60% of your potential dating pool right off the bat just because you are 5'9". You are still in the game. But unfortunately, your background might disqualify you from a big chunk of the dating market, depending on your ethnicity. And people are not gonna admit it consciously. But that is just the truth, man. Again, I am not saying this is how it should be. I am just saying this is how it is. Because a lot of non-white men are being gaslighted by society. I want you guys to understand. Guys, women can't even admit it to themselves. There are other studies done in the past also showing the same thing. There is a major difference between stated and actual female preference. Women will say something and do something completely different. Think about the way you see gay men, right? Sure, a dude can be tall, can be muscled, whatever, but you are not gonna ever see him that way. Unless you are gay, that is, of course. It is not even gonna cross your mind. You are not gonna say, oh man, look at this stud. You are not gonna think that, no matter what. When a woman is not into your phenotype, it is pretty much like that. And what happens is this. Females go through several justifications in their minds to not admit it to themselves and face a cognitive dissonance, right? So they chalk it up to, oh, it is because their culture, they are too different, you know? Their backwards culture is not respectful to women. They immediately start blaming the cultural differences rather than just be honest with themselves that they simply have a racial preference because that would get them labeled as a racist. Now, Height is also very important. But the fact of the matter is, women are not gonna subconsciously write you off just because you are 5'10". I know you will see plenty of TikTok videos, women gawking over 6 foot height. But in reality, men lie about their height all the time, as long as you are like 5'10", right? And then again, this is not a linear black and white stuff. This is not 1 or 0. There are levels to this. Guys, the ethnic tax is not a linear model. Doesn't apply to everyone to the exact same degree. For example, black dudes won't face the same penalty brown men do. In recent years, for example, a certain type of East Asian men are also on the rise. You know, pale, pretty boy, Japanese and Korean dudes. K-pop game. They have their own niche demand. But then again, when you think about it, you can see how Caucasian features influence K-pop trend as well. More from the paper. Obviously, the theory of homophily that like attracts like is contradicted by white men's overall popularity. Instead of being disregarded by minority daters, we find that whiteness provides men great advantage in the world of online dating. The pervasiveness of white desire also shows us that racial preference in sexual marketplaces is not merely personal. That is because looks and attraction are universal. It is not something subjective. Guys, it is funny how the more studies come out, the more we are proven right. You can see here not only straight women, but also gay men send messages to white men much more than to non-white men. White women are undeniably privileged in the United States, but they are not so universally desired as white men in dating, according to our data. Instead, both straight men and lesbian daters from minority groups tend to contact women who are from their own racial groups over white women, while white men and white lesbians prefer white women over minorities. Honestly, not only in the United States, but in the world, really. This is also backed by previous data as well, that men are much less racially selective than females. They say, oh well, men do that too, right? Pure projection, guys. Men are more than fine to go for women of their own race. Women are not. See, this is their justification. Surely everybody is like me, right? Because when you see the world one way, you think others do it too. The next step in their Olympics of coping and mental gymnastics is, oh sweetie, that clip, that study is from 2014. Oh sweetie, we have changed so much in the last 10 years. Okay, that clip is from 2014, but this data is from 2021. What is your excuse now? You can see in the graph, bars above the line in the middle represent a preference for whites. When you look at ethnic females responding on hookup apps, they all respond to white men significantly more than to men of their own group. But when you look at how ethnic men send messages and initiate contact, they heavily go for women of their own race. So you can't even cope and say, oh well, that is because like attracts like. That is why white women respond to white men more. The reason is absolutely not some sort of white woman's political allegiance and loyalty to white men. Even women of other races respond to white men more behind closed doors. Doesn't matter what they say on Twitter. They will say something and then do something completely opposite. We all know. Why do you think Tinder, which is the biggest data available, stopped sharing their racial numbers? Because it didn't fit their agenda. That women in the biggest blue states, the most liberal states, whether white or ethnic women, heavily prefer white men. It didn't fit their agenda. A lot of people were triggered, so they removed the page and stopped sharing data from the largest hookup app there is.
Mamita, ¿y a ti de qué te gusta el americano? ¿Lo que más te gusta del rostro del americano?
Pues los ojos, tienen unos ojos muy preciosos. La mayoría tienen los ojos como azules, verdes, unos ojos divinos.
Me gustan los hombres blancos, altos, que son bien perfiles fileños. Tienen unos labios delgados, rosaditos.
More from the study. What explains the fact that white men receive minimal responses from minority women, but white women infrequently receive messages from minority men? One explanation is patriarchy. Society still emphasizes men's socioeconomic status and women's physical beauty. Thus, white men continue to hold most of the power and economic resources. Lookism explains it perfectly. Of course, they are still coping. Oh, patriarchy, oh, social status. Dude, females on those dating hookup apps don't care about socioeconomic status as much. They are looking for fun times. They are not looking for some wage rage code monkey. Taller height explains it. Caucasian phenotype and traits like colored eyes, blue eyes explain it, which has been proven to be preferred more by females. It has been proven that women on average, regardless of their race, find colored eyes to be more attractive on men. Likewise, Caucasian facial phenotype, nose types, taller height. Less than 10% of the world population have blue or green eyes. Less than 10%. Does socioeconomic status play a role? Of course it does, but to a much lesser degree in the West, especially when you analyze the data coming from hookup apps. These women are looking for fun times, dude, but it does have an impact, the socioeconomic status of being white. It does have an impact when you consider the real life implications. These are not mutually exclusive. It can be both playing a part. More from the study. Mary, a college-aged white woman, alluded to this. Definitely, I feel like I never had to worry about being a fetish or worry about someone not liking me because of my race. I feel like even if someone said, I don't want to date a white girl, I think I would be like, I understand, I hate white people too. It is gonna be okay. I don't know, I never had to even worry about that. Of course, she has no insecurities, because she knows it is an absolute advantage to be a white woman. She would shake it off as a joke if she ever experienced a comment like that. Unfortunately, a comment like that is too real for ethnic men to just laugh at. By contrast, Bianca, a 29-year-old Latina, told us that she thinks white men have differing standards when it comes to whom they will take to bed versus take home to their parents. Bianca is probably speaking from experience. She probably fell for some white guy who acted like who was interested in her only to get in her pants and then dumped her. A lot of ethnic women don't understand this. Yes, a lot of men, a lot of white men and men in general are less racially selective to date and hook up. But a lot of white men, not all of course, white men with lesser dating options will have to marry out. But a lot of white men will not commit to ethnic girls in the long term. They are not your virtuous shining knight. Just because he is using you doesn't mean he ever saw you as a serious candidate. You were never anything more than an easy lay to him. Just fun times. But out of ethnic females who stereotype ethnic men so easily to justify their preference for white men don't understand this. Oh, patriarchy, white men treat us with more respect. They somehow trick themselves into thinking white men will be their virtuous, shining knight and won't see them as quick and easily. The reality hits different. More from the paper. These are not just beliefs, but scripts for action and inaction. Figure 4.6 indicates that white women respond to messages from white men nearly twice as often as they do to messages from black and Asian men. They respond to Latinos slightly more than black and Asian matches, but not nearly as frequently as they respond to white men. I like this quote. These are not just beliefs, but scripts for action and inaction. Exactly. Oh, I don't see it that way, man. That is okay, but the evidence sees it that way, bro. Evidence sees it that way. Your beliefs or mine don't matter in the light of hard evidence. You also gotta keep in mind that these two are interrelated. Do you know how rare and unlikely it is to be from a South Asian country and also have 6'4" height? I mean, there are so many arguments against it. It just blows my mind when people say, oh, it doesn't matter, it is just a skin color. When in reality, it unfortunately does matter a lot. It often influences your facial phenotype and height as well. It is not independent from those. Then, on top of that, it also influences preconceived notions people have about you. The social aspect also factors in. I will be keeping it 100% on this channel, man. I could say to you, face and personality, having a good character is the only thing that matters in the dating. But I am not gonna lie to you. Don't be a free agent in life.